Hello everybody, it's Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician, making another video out of Boise, Idaho, working on a Honda here, and this one has turned out to be quite interesting. Once I got down to the bottom of it though, I've seen it before. I don't see it often, but I have seen it before. So where to start? I met this gentleman in the parking lot of the parts house at O'Reilly's. He had complaints that he had an O2 sensor code and that he had loss of power. The history behind it was that he was driving, I believe, on some type of road trip maybe or something, and all of a sudden at 80 miles an hour he just lost power, and after that he limped it home, and somewhere in between losing power at 80 miles an hour and arriving home, I guess, the check engine light came on. So then he had the check engine light checked, and it turned out that there was bad input from one of the O2 sensors. It was your typical generic O2 sensor code. And then, longer story short, he meets me in the parking lot. So I get him over to the house, and loss of power, sudden loss of power, along with a generic O2 sensor code, those two things go hand in hand. And so the first thing I did was put the computer on it. I checked the live data. The first thing I did was check the freeze frame data, and the car was moving at 92 miles per hour, so he was cruising on his road trip when the O2 sensor code kicked in. It did not record the loss of power though. It just recorded the O2 sensor. And so I checked the O2 sensor. I checked the live data on the sensors, both on bank 1 and bank 2, and lo and behold, the O2 sensors on bank 1 and bank 2 were reading just fine. Now I noticed that the O2 sensor in the that's bank 2, which is behind the catalytic converter. On this car, it's actually it's inside the catalytic converter. I noticed that O2 sensor, although it was reading, it was dropping off and reading funny here and there and not acting correctly. So checking the parameters on that O2 sensor, it was actually working within parameters, but it wasn't reading correctly. So the first thing that tells me is that the catalytic converter is not working correctly, and that would explain loss of power as well. So that's what I did. We ordered a catalytic converter, and I uninstalled the catalytic converter. And I've seen catalytic converters that are completely burnt up. I've seen them black, I've seen them gray, I've seen the honeycomb in there come to pieces like lava, and I've seen them to where you can't even see a speck of light through them. So, and I had to cut this off, and that made me happy. Okay, there you go, we have a clogged catalytic converter. And so I changed the catalytic converter, took it for a small test drive. I myself got it up to about 70 miles per hour. Didn't have any issues getting it up to 70 miles per hour, and was happy from there. Cleared the code. Everything was good. From what I understand, looking at the miles between myself and the owner picking it up, about 30 plus miles was put on it. And about an hour after picking it up, the owner called me and said he just had loss of power again. So the first thing I asked was, is there a check engine light on? No, there's no check engine light. And again, there's still no check engine light on as of this morning. And so, I explained to him that at this point we need to do a more extensive diagnosis and get deeper into it and try to figure it out. I was thinking possible fuel pump, possible fuel injector. I was also thinking timing, something like that. As far as the fuel system goes, I've never seen it, but maybe the fuel pump is going out and it's just not pushing enough at 80 miles per hour to keep it going. That's what somebody who's got 50 years experience to my 20 years experience said that they've seen before. I have seen a lazy fuel injector, a fuel injector that's dropping off, or a fuel injector that's clogged and not working correctly, keep a car from going a certain miles per hour. I've also seen timing issues do some funny things to a car. And so the first thing I decided I would do is check the timing. Now, it's pretty easy to do, but you do have to remove some stuff So I'm going to set you aside so I can get the hood set up here. And so I removed the upper valve cover, or the valve cover, and just got that set aside so I could get in and I could check the timing here. All right. Now, on the Hondas, what you do on these 2.3s, and this isn't Nissan. Some of you have seen my Nissan videos. This is Honda now. On the harmonic balancer, if you can see down in there, you've got a... sorry about that, guys. Down in there, you've got a couple of arrows there that are part of the timing cover, and that's what you line your notches up on your harmonic balancer for top dead center, okay? And so that's what I did. I've got the bottom half of the engine aligned at TDC per my first mark. Don't worry, you will also see 3 other little marks on the harmonic balancer. Do not worry about those marks. Just worry about that first one and look at it straight down and line that sucker up. Now that I've done that, where you should be up top is this up should be at 12 o'clock with the angle of the plane of the head. So as you can see, the engine kind of sits like this a little bit. So that should be completely lined up. And as I look at it, we are about 1 tooth off on top here. So our timing belt has jumped 1 tooth. Okay, this needs to be moved over just a hair. Let me see if I can place that where that actually needs to be at. And it's not going to be much. Okay, yep, there you go. Now, if I go back down here, where did that place me? You probably can't see the notch. But as I look, my little notch, if you see that little bright spot, is no longer lined up. So I'm about 1 tooth off on my timing. Now, why my timing jumped, I couldn't necessarily tell you until I break this engine down and look in there. It shows that the timing belt was changed at 85,000. There's about 120 plus thousand miles. You know, maybe the tensioner failed or something like that, and it caused the timing to jump. But bottom line is the timing belt has jumped 1. So the next step to do right now is to break this down and go ahead and change the timing belt, figure out what the heck has gone wrong inside of here. And we also need to decide if we're going to pull the cylinder head or what we're going to do to check and see if there's a bent valve in there or anything. I could run a compression test right now, and I'll tell you right now, it's not gonna pass the compression test. So I think the proper thing to do, the fastest and cheapest thing to do, although it could end up costing you money in the long run, would be to change the timing belt, figure out why the timing jumped, fix that problem, and then run your compression test. And if your compression test fails, then once the engine is reset, then you'll know that you have a bent valve and you'll need to go back in there and remove the cylinder head. So that's where that's at, folks. So yeah, if you ever get one of these Hondas, and I've seen Volvos and Volkswagens do it too, they'll jump a tooth or something and they'll run funny. They won't let you go above 50 miles an hour. The other way they'll act, that I've seen them act more this way than the other way, is it'll either won't start at all, it'll hardly start. That's a good way to know if your timing's messed up. Or B, it'll start, but then when you try to go, you want to talk about real loss of power, it'll definitely be all kinds of messed up. So this one, he drives it, and here and there he loses power at 80 miles an hour. And so I finally decided to go ahead and at least break it down so I could check the upper timing and all the timing marks, and sure enough, we're off a tooth. So I guess we'll figure out how we're going to get this one fixed. All right, everybody. Well, this is Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting me. I am signing off.